Crouse.
Well, congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much, Richard.
So, you're one of the stars of the film, also the co-writer. Tell me a little bit about where the idea for this involving the LARPers and this kind of dark Viking story came from.
Sure. Well, Alexander, the director, and I really we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for the last 20 years. So obviously, fantasy is very close to us, and escapism, both of us. So I really wanted to portray an escapist character in an escapist group, and I was wondering how we could, the conflict between reality and fantasy always sort of fascinated me, and how can we weave a tale about that? So that's where it began, and it also began with an image that occurred 10,000 years ago in a cave in Ariège, France, about a horned shaman. This symbol, archaeologists and anthropologists believe, is the precursor to Herne the Hunter, Cernunnos, the Celt god, and also the precursor to devils, demons, and that led me to think, what are the myths that become erased, and what are the personal myths that people go to adhere to and want to portray? And I think in our society we tend to be forced into playing only one role, and perhaps a role that's not necessarily comfortable for us. Right. So it's about this role playing, and slowly with Alexander we started to harness and sort of build this fantasy and reality tale embodied in two brothers, a younger one, a chronic realist, an older one, myself playing the older one who's a chronic escapist, and of course the younger brother's fearful that he's going to lose his relationship because he's involved in this love triangle that's spiraling out of control, and so he's forced to go up to the LARP to meet the older brother, and they're about to reconcile, but it also sort of begins to spiral out of control, and that's when we walk this line between fantasy and reality, and I think that's crucial and essential to our film, The Wild Hunt.
Right, and you were using a lot of improv during the making of the film. So tell me a little bit about how much the movie changed from the point where you guys first started rolling camera, or maybe even first started writing the script, to the point where you were making it, and then I guess it probably changed again when you got it in the editing room.
Oh, well, absolutely. First thing was actually budget. We originally thought of this as being more of an action film in which it began to spiral out of control earlier. Right. Then, for budgetary parameters and submission, which was one thing, and trying to be true to the story, it became more of a drama, more of a thriller, kind of more of a slow-building suspense, right. And so we pushed certain action elements in the film later and later. So that was one thing. Improvisation is very important for me because I think you can reach a level of authenticity that you cannot do otherwise by forcing your dialogue on someone else. So we got a select group of actors, excellent actors, Ricky Maybe, Kyle Gatehouse, Spiro and Tio and Trevor and Nicholas Wright, who we adore. So many of them really, and many of them, not all of them are comfortable with improvisation. The majority of this core group is very comfortable, and that really adds a level of authenticity that I believe, being an actor myself and knowing some of these Montreal actors, that we had the capacity to create something extremely authentic that would be able, because it's not easy to play actors who are playing actors. It's very difficult. This film could have just unraveled and literally spiraled out of control at every time the wind blew or changed direction because of that. These characters, and I think people are really being affected by that, this play, because I think that's hooking them. They're becoming anchored in their own struggles and conflicts between reality and fantasy, which I hope this film will evoke.
Well, I think that, what you have, you say it started off with the idea of being a huge action film, or a big action film, but I think it works better as a character study with elements of action in it. And I think that
it is.
The improv, I think, is important to that, because you have to like these characters, or maybe not like them in all cases, because some of them I don't know that are particularly likable, but you have to be able to understand them and look at them as real people beyond the pelts and the axes and the shields that they carry. Otherwise, the story's going to fall kind of flat.
Absolutely, and we really wanted to capture that authenticity, so much so that in the filming itself, we began by our day scenes before it turns night. We actually shot during a live-action role-playing event where the camera crew had to be literally wearing costumes, and the camera was disguised in fur and pelts, so in every way it was reality and fantasy colliding for us.
How did the real LARPers feel about you telling their story or telling a version of their lifestyle on screen?
Well, because when we found this in another film that's called Denis Dercourt's Demain des l'Aube, where he talks about medieval reconstruction, Napoleon reenactors, right. And that becomes about duelists, and it becomes very serious and spirals out of control. People were, obviously making a big fuss about them being looked at in a bad light. This is a fictional saga told in a fictional LARP, set in a fictional LARP. LARPers are the most peaceful people.
Right.
So of course, when LARPers see the trailer, on YouTube, they're going to go, "Oh my God, they're going to make us look like animals or this and that." Well, that's normal. I would have that reaction too. But if you come see the films, it's not about that. And the core LARPers who have come to see the film really enjoy the film.
Right.
Yes, they worry. Some of them do worry about that, but all of the non-LARPers who have seen this film do not think highly or lower of LARPers. They're really affected by the storytelling, and they're fascinated by this place. They're fascinated by the phenomenon of LARP. And if anything, this film is not a judgment, good or bad, versus LARPers. It will raise awareness to what is LARP in general.
Well, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I've heard of Civil War reenactors, and I've heard of that kind of thing, but I didn't know about LARPers. So tell me then, what is the difference? You said earlier on that you had played Dungeons and Dragons with Alexander for 20 years. What's the difference? Because Dungeons and Dragons players aren't necessarily LARPers, and LARPers don't necessarily play Dungeons and Dragons. So tell me the difference.
Wow, I think that's a really hard question. I don't think I would love to be able to answer to that quickly, because you are absolutely right. There's different fantasy factions. Boy, right. That sounds very interesting. Is there a website?
Yeah.
There are different clans. There's people who are purists. They just play board games, right. D&D, throw dice, and that's basically what we did. Right. Others just play online, first-person shooters, or right. this, or role-playing, that kind of thing. Others are more into just LARP because they want to be connected. I think ultimately is what is the level or kind of connection that you're looking for. Our film is very much about becoming connected to ritual. Ritual, I believe, in society, which we're becoming more and more disconnected from. Right. And you get that sense at the LARP. So that is really what I think the LARPers tap into. They tap into the ritual, and when you go to a LARP, you'll see it's a very much a family event. Right. The kids are all elven ears and that kind of thing. So it really is a peaceful event. But what happens what if there would be a group of intense characters in a perfect storm? And that's what we're focusing on. Just like there are certain soccer matches which end in a total bloodbath. Right. But is all soccer evil? Maybe. How many policemen and doctors in TV shows are portrayed as the evilest scum of the earth? So are all doctors and cops crooked? I don't know.
Richard Crouse.